Hello there. Hey, I want to apologize about yesterday. I I've been working a lot, guys, and really burnt out and tired. And I tried to do a video. I was on the road, and it got dark, and the lighting was just awful, and I wasn't very pleased. And I believe that excellence honor God, and I want to be able to give my best when I do service for the Lord. So I hope you understand. And I hope that today you can pick up on day 31 as we do 31 and 32 today. But I really want you to know that it's really my heart, my passion. I want to continue this journey. I believe in it, and I just know that the enemy, he's bringing in all kinds of things to distract and to put things in my path to keep me from moving forward in this. But I want you to keep persevering as I'm persevering, because I know God's doing something. So before we get started today, let's open up in prayer. Lord Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for your love, your mercy, and your grace. Father, you're so gracious and so kind. Father, I ask that you join us today. Your words is where two or more gather in your name, you're there. And I welcome you. We need a refreshing today. I pray that you speak to us. Show us where to go, what to do, how to do it. Show us what we can do to greatly make our marriage better. What we need to clean our closet out with, and just to make ourselves whole and complete with you. Father, have your way today. Amen. The title of today's devotion, let me turn this thing off before I get interrupted. The title of today's devotion is called Love Values Oneness. Matthew 19:6 says, "So they are no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, man must not separate." When a young person gets married, a parent may not be ready to release him or her from their control and their expectations. Whether through unhealthy dependence or inner struggles over the empty nest, parents don't always embrace their new role and responsibility. In such cases, the grown child, now married, has to make a leaving, courageous choice of their own. It may be one of the hardest things that you've ever done, but it honors God's design, but it honors God's design. And it will only get harder the longer you put it off. If you're too tightly connected to your parents, the independent identity of your marriage will not be able to flower, will not be able to blossom. You will always be held back, and roots of resentment and division will send up new shoots into your relationship. For without leaving, you cannot do the cleaving you need, the joining of your hearts that's required to experience the ultimate oneness with your spouse. Unity is a marriage quality to be guarded at great cost. Unity is a marriage quality to be guarded at great cost. Only in oneness can you become all that God means for you to be. Today we're going to be talking about unity. Today we're going to be dealing with oneness. Today we're going to be talking about leaving and cleaving. Some of you may be like, what, leaving? Cleaving? What are you talking about? Well, we're going to get into it, and it's very, very important. We kind of hit on the importance of oneness, and you can't be one with your spouse if you haven't really left mom and dad. So today, the devotion or the challenge is there a leaving issue that you haven't been brave enough to conquer yet? We're going to deal more with the leaving part, but I just want you to ask yourself, is there a leaving issue that you haven't been brave enough to conquer yet? If so, I want you to confess it to your spouse today. And I want you to resolve to make it right today. Not tomorrow, today. The oneness of your marriage is dependent upon this. The oneness of your marriage is dependent upon your confession and your willingness to leaving that leaving situation in the past and moving forward to today. And after you have confessed this to your spouse, I want you to follow this with a commitment to your spouse and to God to make your marriage the top priority over every other human relationship. Now, the leaving and cleaving part. Genesis 2:24. It says, "A man shall leave his father and his mother and be joined to his wife, and they shall become one flesh." A man shall leave his wife and his mother and be joined, be cleaved. Cleaved is joined to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. If you do not mentally leave your father and your mother, then you cannot be one with your spouse. I know that may be upsetting to some of you, but it's possible to be physically with your spouse, but mentally be checked out. Now, the reason this leaving is a big issue because many times when we're young in love and we're newly married, young married people, we want to rely on mom and dad to handle everything, and they're to be our rescue, they're to be our source. We depend upon them for everything, for every answer, every direction, and we fail to see that God has given us another person to come in contact with us, to join us, and to help us in life's journey, so we can start to drift away from the bottle of our parents, and from the parent home ways of things to joining with our spouse. I hope that makes sense to you. Genesis 2:24 is God's original blueprint for how marriage is supposed to work. It involves a tearing away and a knitting together. It reconfigures existing relationships while establishing a brand new one. Marriage changes everything. Couples who don't take this leaving and cleaving message to the heart will reap the consequences down the line when the problems are much more harder to repair without hurting someone. The leaving and cleaving message needs to sink deep into your heart. You need to take this serious. If you do not leave your childhood home, your parents, in their own area, then you are robbing your spouse of the joy, the attention, the affection that they need. Now listen, leaving means that you are breaking a natural tie. We all need to do it. Our parents had a season to mold and to shape us into being the person we are today. Now that you are married, their full-time training is now officially over. You need to let them retire. They should be commended for everything that they did for you, but now that you're married, their role has ended, and the new role as husband and wife has begun. This new role cannot take effect until you leave the parents where they are, until you retire them out of your life. They can still be there, but not as much as they were. Now, I'm not saying that they are no longer your parents, or they're no longer welcome into your life or to your home, but they're telling you what to do and how to do it should have ended when you said I do. Their role should be now your friend and on occasion, they should be the counselor. And only a counselor to you if they have a solid foundation. You know, if they have it all together. If they know the importance of teaching other people the ways to get through certain situations they've gone through, and in a positive way. Now, sometimes a parent may not be ready to release you, to release total control of you and all their expectations of you. In such cases, the grown child has to make a leaving, courageous choice of his own. And far too often, this break is not made in the right way. I'm going to give you a good example. I was listening to the radio yesterday, and this lady called in, and she's Asian. Parents are Asian, and she's an Asian American, and she is now out of the home, 23, 24 years old, and her parents just told her this week that if you don't lose 35 pounds, we're going to lock you into a room. And this girl was like, I mean, you can't. And she's thinking, you can't tell me what to do. But Asian parents can be very dominant, very controlling. And children usually are very submissive to their parents. So this girl made a courageous decision to leave her family when they started demanding these kind of things. And this girl is 5'5", weighs 155 pounds. Not overweight at all. But her parents demanded this. And so now she's making a courageous decision by choosing to be a daughter from afar until her parents start to accept her for who she is. Now, let me ask you a question. Are you and your spouse still living with unresolved issues because of a failure to cut the apron ties or the apron strings with your parents? Do either of your parents continue to create problems within your home, perhaps without their even knowing it? Are they showing up unexpectedly? You know, what needs to happen to put a stop to this before it creates too wide of a division in your marriage? These are important questions that you should be asking yourself if your parents are too attached to your marriage. Now listen to me. Unity is a marriage quality to be guarded at all cost. It's valuable. It needs to be protected. The purpose of leaving, of course, is not to abandon all contact with the past, but rather to preserve the unique oneness that marriage is designed to capture. Only in oneness can you become all that God means for you to be. Only in oneness can you become all that God means for you to be. If you are too tightly drawn to your parents in your marriage, you will always be held back, and a root of division will continue to sprout up, to spring up into your marriage, and it won't go away unless you finally say, enough is enough. For without leaving, you cannot do the cleaving you need to your spouse. It's the joining of hearts that create the true experience of oneness. If you don't physically and mentally leave your parents, you cannot physically and mentally be cleaved to your spouse. It's going to cause some problems. Now, cleaving carries the idea of catching someone by pursuit, clinging to them as your new rock or refuge and safety. This man is now the spiritual leader of your new home, tasked with the responsibility of loving you, just as Christ also loved the church and gave himself to her. This woman is now one in union with you, called to see to it that she respects her husband. When this has been achieved, you are now free to become everything that God meant when he declared you to be one flesh. God's decision to make you one flesh in marriage can make anything and everything possible. You are able to achieve oneness in your decision making even when you begin from different viewpoints. You're able to achieve oneness in your priorities. Even though you've come together from different backgrounds, they could hardly be more different. You are able to achieve oneness in your sexual affection towards one another, even if either or both of you have memories of impurity in your premarital past. If this is not how things are going in your home right now, if there is not total oneness, if you're still cleaving to your family and haven't cleaved to your spouse, you're unfortunately in the majority. It's not out of character for couples of all kinds, even Christian couples, to ignore God's design for marriage, thinking they know better than He does. Thinking it's a harmful thing. It's not such a harmful thing to be so attached to my parents and for them to be so much into my marriage. I won't lie to you about anything, and I won't lie to you about this. It is hard. It's extremely, extremely hard when the pursuit of oneness is basically one-sided. Your spouse may not be interested at all in recapturing the unity that you had when you said I do, or when you first said I love you. Even if there is some desire on his or her part, there may be still some unresolved issues between you that are nowhere close to being resolved. The littlest things can lead to big things. And it could be you're not wanting to separate from your parents. They could be causing some huge things into your marriage right now. But if you continue to keep a passion of oneness forefront in your mind and in your heart, your relationship over time will begin to reflect the inseparable one flesh design that is printed in your very DNA. You don't have to go looking for it. It's already there. Leave and cleave today, and dare to walk as one. Be bold. Say, Mom, say, Dad, I love you. I value your opinion. I value you as my parents, but I'm now an adult. I am now married. This is my husband. This is my wife. I value them. They're going to be my main source now, and I ask that you respect this. If they don't, then you need to have that period of separation. Don't fear losing their relationship or fear them totally walking away from you, because true love doesn't do that. But you need to stand up and say, today, I'm taking ownership of my marriage. So is there a leaving issue you haven't been brave enough to conquer yet? Confess it to your spouse today and resolve to make it right. The oneness of your marriage is dependent upon this. Follow up this commitment to your spouse and to God to make your marriage the top priority over every other human relationship. If you start to do these things, your marriage can start to blossom. Your marriage can start to be restored. The enemy wants to blind you in all these areas, and my heart, my hope is to open your eyes in these areas. God bless you.